Okay, everyone, welcome to this UCAT webinar. This is going to be
Okay,
going
it's
through
done. It's
everything
fine.
you
I
need
don't
to
need
know
it yet.
about
Thanks
the
so
UCAT
much.
exam. Now, the UCAT, what is the UCAT? It's a compulsory aptitude exam used to assess all medical and dental applicants before taking it and getting into admission, okay? It's something everyone has to do if you want to study medicine in the UK and also Australia and New Zealand, okay? And it's a very tough exam. Now, I'm assuming you guys are here because it's maybe your first time hearing about it, or it may even be something that you're worried about. A lot of students come to us worried in the summer saying, how am I going to prepare for the UCAT? How am I going to get through it? And actually, not too long ago, me and my co-host over here, Ibrahim, we're also in the same position as you guys. We, took the UCAT ourselves and hopefully we managed to obviously get into medicine dentistry, but it wasn't an easy process because we had to navigate through a lot of information that was out there, a lot of difficult tasks of actually getting through the UCAT ourselves, practicing, pushing for a high score, running into hurdles and inconsistencies. So what we've done today, alongside the rest of our Medentors team, which is made up of 40 plus mentors, have come together and made a comprehensive webinar that gives you tips and strategies on how to smash this UCAT exam and help you guys make the most out of this summer, okay? Now, this summer, a lot of people say is very stressful. Some of you guys may have actually done the UCAT already, and this is like your second attempt, which is, okay, it's very understandable because getting into medicine and dentistry isn't always easy. But the aim for today is to give you guys the right strategy, the right action plan to push towards that top percentile score, okay? As we've helped many students do in the past. So, to introduce myself. My name is Mohammed Mufti. I'm a medical student. I'm one of the mentors at Medentors who, help run our events and webinars. And I'm joined today with Ibrahim, an experienced top 1% UCAT mentor who leads all of our UCAT webinars and goes through the process of checking everything, making sure it's all up to date. And what we're going to be doing today is going through the UCAT, the intricacies. There's a lot of misinformation out there, so we're going to come in with the most recent evidence-based research that's been out there on the UCAT and what's been changed as of recently. Okay, so that is our aim for today. So I'm joined with Ibrahim. So for those of you guys who are new, what is Medentors? We are a community of UK medical, dental, and high achieving university students who help you guys do well in all aspects of your academics, whether it's your A levels, your GCSEs, or any sort of exams you've got coming up. We've got loads of webinars giving you guys study strategies. We also do admissions webinars, such as this one, where we go through the UCAT, the personal statement, how to apply, how to make the most out of your work experience, picking the right career for you, what university to apply to, everything. And we also work with schools and communities across the UK, helping people improve, whether it's academically or with their admissions, with our interactive workshops. And we've got mentors across the country to help out with these sorts of things, okay? So that is what we do essentially at Medentors. And over the past few years, what have we done? Well, we've reached out to a global community of 3,500 plus students, worked with 40 plus schools and organizations, and 90% of our students have managed to get that admission into a medical dental school. That all an important goal. Okay, lovely. So let's get started then with the webinar about the UCAT and everything you need to know. So what is the UCAT? It is a compulsory entrance exam you guys have to sit. It generally starts the earliest dates sometime around July, and the latest dates are towards mid-September. And you can book any date via the UCAT Pearson, the Pearson View UCAT website. I would recommend you guys to make an account now for Pearson View so that when registration does open to actually book a date, you're available to do that and you don't have to you know, um, hassle midnight and trying to make an account for yourself before the deadline opens because the spaces do sell out very fast to actually book a UCAT date and the website does crash a lot. So do make an account if you haven't. And the UCAT consists of four subsections. Okay, four subsections. Three of those subsections are cognitive, and the final one is a situational judgment subsection. The three cognitive subsections, what do? They make up your cognitive score. So you might see people say, "Oh, I got 2250 band 1." What does that actually mean when they tell you that's their score? They're basically saying their cognitive combination of the three subsections, and at the end they give you a band score, which is for your situational judgment test, the fourth subsection, okay? So the first three subsections, they are scored out of a maximum of 900. So if you get 900 in all three of them, the highest UCAT score available is 2700. Now, how many people get 2700? I don't think anyone in history has. No, you might get 2600, and that's very rare. Almost nobody does that. A good score would be around that 2100 to 2200 to really push towards. On average, people are getting around 600 out of 900 per subsection. The lowest score you can get in a subsection is 300. So the lowest possible UCAT score is 900, okay? Simple enough. Okay, and obviously different universities use this entrance exam differently. Now, what happens with the fourth subsection? How does that work? The situational judgment test is basically testing your ethics, decision making, your understanding of different situations and how to act in them, mainly clinical, just to test your idea of how to deal with different situations, analyzing the appropriateness and the importance of certain events and features over others, okay? And we'll get into some questions later on with this webinar of how exactly that works. So, it's scored from bands. The highest band is band 1 and the lowest band is band 4. Be wary of band 4 because that's an auto reduction for the majority of UK universities, okay? However, it's very rare to get band 4. Like, I mean, you've got to want to kill a patient to get band 4, okay? Not a lot of people do get it. And if you do train well enough, it's very easy to push towards that band 1 and band 2. Me personally, I managed to get myself a band 1 by just being consistent with some of the strategies, which we'll share with you later, okay? And any question, guys, as we're going along, do drop them in the chat. We've got Ibrahim here to help answer that. So, let's go through an overview of the UCAT. How do you go about approaching it? Well, the UCAT, as we all know, is an entrance exam. And this entrance exam is just like any other exam where you're going to have to sit one and approach it. But the approach to the UCAT is different to how you'd approach your traditional school exams, i.e., your GCSEs and A levels. Now, we've been told our whole lives that the more hours you study, the higher your score is. Now, that's not quite the case for the UCAT. The more hours you study with the UCAT, there's a certain extent at which your score increases, but you might then notice that your score decreases. It's something known as, and we just call it this, the UCAT curve. You begin to do more preparation. You're obviously going to see your average score increase, which you should be tracking via an Excel sheet. You're going to be seeing your score increase, and then you plateau. You reach a peak, okay? You'll get to that peak. And after that, it just becomes burdensome. You begin to burn out. You're not working as quickly. Pressure starts piling up, and your score decreases. That's a common theme between students who give themselves 10 weeks, 12 weeks, 15 weeks to prepare for their UCAT. They just start burning out in the last 15, in the last 5, 6 weeks, okay? Last few ones as well. Why? Because the UCAT is a timed exam that's testing your mental ability to process things and also testing your ability to work under stress. A large amount of stress on the body is going to lead to a score decrease. This is a phenomenon we've seen for years. So, how long should you be preparing for the UCAT? 6 to 8 weeks before your booked date. So, for example, me, I booked my UCAT on August 25th and I took it and I started preparing towards like mid-July. Mid-July, I started my preparation. That gave me plenty of time to, have that 6 to 8 weeks to begin go on my UCAT prep, okay? So that is what we would recommend. Now we're going to go into specifically of how to chunk that revision off and how to get on with it, but that is what we need to know. The next thing is there's a different mindset of approach with this exam. The UCAT is not a content-based exam. There's not a specification of facts you have to learn and then apply them and write them down. No, this is a time-pressured aptitude exam. It's not testing your knowledge for anything. You can go in there without being a medic necessarily and taking the UCAT, maybe other than the SJT. So your friends who aren't even applying for medicine dentistry can take the UCAT. You're not at an advantage over them. For example, if your friends are doing engineering, law, computer science, whatever, they can take the UCAT. It's not specific to your sciences that you're taught that you guys have picked for your A levels, okay? What this is for testing is a few skills. For example, in the first subsection, which we'll get to, is verbal reasoning, is testing your skill of speed reading, skimming, picking information, analyzing what's important, what matters, and making a choice quickly and effectively. Also, identifying what questions are actually worth your time and what questions you should just skip. Now, if I told you to actually skip and not answer a question for your A levels or just guess one, would you take that advice on board? You wouldn't, because with the A levels, you've got plenty of time to attempt every single question. The UCAT, it's built different. You're not meant to answer every single question. The first trap students fall into is I need to answer every single question with 100% accuracy and get 100%. This is not an exam where you maximize your score by getting everything right. This is an exam where you pick 80%, 70% of the questions, and you get that 80 to 70% of questions right, and the other 20% you guess. Why? Because those 20% questions are low yield. They're going to take you 2 minutes to do per question, and that's a lot of time in UCAT minutes. 2 minutes of UCAT time is a lot. It's very expensive, okay? And you don't want to waste that. You can get 4 questions done in that time with regards to some other ones. Right, so that's a mindset we need to get out of. That's the first exercise and activity I want you guys to get into. And as we'll go into our verbal reasoning and quantitative reasoning specific webinars, which we'll have coming up soon in the following weeks, we're going to draw that skill into you guys. Okay, cool. That's the first thing. And the third thing that we'll discuss is reflection. Now, you guys can just pack your bags and leave your UCAT score behind if you're not going to give yourself an Excel sheet, if you're not going to give yourself a system of tracking your weaknesses, because you're just wasting time. You're just mindlessly doing questions, which is not what we want you to do. There are too many students who do 10,000 plus questions, thousands of questions, and they still score subpar. They still get scores below 2,000, which isn't competitive in today's day and age, right? Why? They've done loads of questions, so that shouldn't be an issue. Well, unfortunately, they haven't reflected. They haven't tracked their score. They haven't identified their weaknesses, and they haven't given themselves the time to actually sit down and revise. Okay, and that's what's holding them back a lot of the times. So this is one thing I would recommend. Okay, give yourself that time to relax. Are you all good, guys? Lovely. Any questions, we can always drop it in the chat. So, how do you go about tackling the UCAT? Now, I've given you guys just a basic little breakdown. This is obviously adjustable based on the pace you're working at. So, you don't have to follow week by week the strategies which were given on this slide. However, this is just a good indicator. However, I would like you guys to do this at your own discretion and obviously ask questions on our group chat as well if there's anything you want to clarify. So, begin by doing just a couple hours of UCAT prep, maybe 3 to 4 hours as well. 2 to 3 hours, okay? Not a lot of time. And that's for 6 to 8 weeks. Why should you not do more hours? Because the UCAT, when you're actually working, you're working. It's not like A levels where you can take a break back, you've got a few minutes spare of cushion time, you can look back at your questions. No, the UCAT is intensive and it burns through your mental energy like anything. Doing anything more than 3 to 4 hours maximum per day is going to eat at your will to live. Okay, guys? Trust me. I'm saying this as someone who's taken the UCAT and taught it to thousands of students over the course of past few years. Okay? This is something that's really important that you guys need to get in. Start off by doing on-time prep with everything. And in fact, we always advise our students. So if you've been in our community, you'll see that we've been urging you guys, even before you've had your May Year 12 UCAS exams, your predicted grade exams, to just be doing 15 minutes of UCAT prep on the official website, the free question bank, and having a bit of a go. That's what we recommend you guys to do anyways, as a baseline level of work, okay? So do a bit of on-time prep. Look over the UCAT Consortium website. Have a bit of practice. Have a bit of a go and understand what sort of questions they are. Understand what is VR, what is a syllogism, how does DM work, what is a logic puzzle, how does it look like, how do I look at the information, what does the text look like, how do I get used to the button keys. Familiarize yourself with these things because you don't want to get to that 6 to 8 weeks of intensive prep and be left empty-handed, okay? You want to come in there prepared, okay? That's how the UCAT works. So that's one thing we need to prioritize. So start off untimed. Once your timed accuracy is around 75, untimed accuracy, sorry, is around 75% accurate. So you're doing untimed questions and your accuracy is around 75%, you're getting most questions right, then move towards timed questions. Not timed subsections, but just timed questions in blocks of 10 questions at a time. That's going to take you what, 5 to 7 minutes to just cycle through? And do that for a week or so until that accuracy increases as well. Then you want to go back and start doing mini mocks. So do just a 45-minute mock of VR and a 37-minute of DM and a, I don't know, 25-minute mock of QR. Okay? Do specific mocks of every single subsection and sort of combine them together. Do it in alternating days, the same day, whichever strategy works for you. A lot of the UCAT is trial and error. And then finally, we want to move towards doing 4 mocks every single other day. Okay? And the most important thing is to take a break, stay active, and keep a healthy work-life balance. I don't think I would have got a score good enough to get me into medical school had I not taken a break and given myself a rest. I had a very strict schedule to the point where I would not do more UCAT prep than I needed to because I knew I'd just come off the back of my predicted grades exams. Those were stressful, those were difficult. It took a lot of energy to get through that. I've got a whole summer coming, I've got year 13 coming. There's a lot exams coming forward as well, and then I've got a UCAT summer. I do not want to burn myself out any more than I need to. Keep your schedule consistent. Don't overburden yourself and find something else to do. With me personally, I would like at least 4 to 5 days a week train in MMA, which is a sport I usually do. And it was just a good way to relax. It was just a good way to, get out there and give myself time to de-stress in a way. For you, it might be playing football, running, I don't know, joining a club, doing anything, okay? So give yourself that skill or give yourself something else that just keeps you happy, okay? Give yourself a bit of a break. That's what I did. So here are some statistics of the UCAT. So an average score per subsection is around 600. No surprise, verbal reasoning is the lowest score subsection because it's just comprehension. And quantitative reasoning is very highly scored. Now, a good strategy I'd give you guys, and I always advise this to my students, is try to improve in all the subsections. But once you get towards the end, farm marks of QR, quantitative reasoning. This is the subsection which has the highest average score, and it's also the most improvable subsection, meaning that you will start off at around 400 to 500, and on test day, the day before when you do a mock, you get a score of like 870, which is out of 900, 870 out of 900. Okay, very common. And I know countless people who have gotten 2200 plus. Why? Because they maxed out their QR score and they got 900. To get 900 in QR is probably double as easy to get 900 in any of the other ones, okay? So this is where you want to farm marks in. If you don't see your score increasing, just prioritize your best subsection, which for most people is QR. A few years ago, there was another subsection, a fourth one called abstract reasoning, which is like shapes and interpretation. And people, that was even easier than QR to get 900 in, and they had to get rid of it because scores were just inflating and it was just not fair to test disparity. But yeah, now the new AR of today is QR. Okay, cool. So aim for 2100. That's a strong score. That's a good place to be. But I want all of you guys to be focusing on that 2300. Okay, that's going to give you a top decile score. And if we aim for something high, we'll fall just below that. Okay, so always give yourself high expectations. So you fall just below that. All right, guys? Lovely. So how do different universities use the UCAT? Now, I would highly, and I mean highly recommend you guys to check out our strategic application guide. I've pinned the PDF in all of our group chats. Please read over them. It tells you what universities take what UCAT score. So if you guys want to stay local, move abroad, go to another city, look around, see what university looks at the UCAT in what way, GCSEs, the requirements, please read our strategic applications guide. This is just a quick summary. I'm not going to go through this in detail because everything is out there for our guide. But the main purpose of this slide is to tell you guys that it's not always the end of the world if you have a low UCAT score. With medicine, there's a lot of options. Dentistry, not so much because there's only 12 dental schools that are undergraduate in the UK. So there's maybe Liverpool and Dundee, just a couple dental schools, Belfast, they'll take lower UCAT scores. But other than that, your options aren't that high. So I don't want to like stress you guys out, but you sort of do need to push for a high UCAT score as a dental applicant just because there's not enough dental schools. And it's also like the most competitive course to get into the UK, right? So what I'll do now is hand over to the my very own UCAT expert at Medentors, Ibrahim Banisad, who's going to be walking you guys through some of the subsections, all right? So I'll hand it over to him.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mufti. That was a good introduction to the UCAT, and that's great from him. Yeah, so a lot of people that you guys, the people that want to know about our resources and stuff like that, we'll get Mufti, he'll send them through in the chat for you guys. All our free resources that we have, our UCAT guide, our strategic application guide, a bunch of stuff, a bunch of useful things that will help you hopefully in your application cycle. Now let's just get into it, and let me just introduce myself a little bit. Now I know it mentions I got a top 1% score, but I'll give you a little bit of the specifics as to how I got where I got. Now, the UCAT is a difficult exam. It's a difficult one. And the issue that people have is they overburden themselves, as we spoke about before. They overburden themselves constantly, constantly putting pressure on themselves to succeed. Because the reality is, people have this idea that this is your one chance of getting in. Now, it's not, but granted, it is very important. But what you need to understand about the UCAT that people don't do is this idea of reflection. Reflection is the top thing that will improve your score. That is the thing that will get you from a score of you averaging 600, 650 in every subsection to like me, averaging about 770, 780 per subsection, which gets you to around the score of 2,300, which is top 10%, top 5% score already, right? Now, how do you do that? You do that by focusing on improvement. There was a huge time period in my UCAT preparation where I was in a slump. I was averaging 600, which would be about 1,800 in today's score. I was averaging about that, and I stayed on that for a huge period of time. I was in a plateau. I didn't know what I was doing wrong. And it was because I was putting hours and hours in, and every time I got a question wrong, I'd skip it. I'd say, oh, I would have got that right. Oh, I would have got that right. Oh, I understand why I got that wrong. And then I kept doing that over and over again. Make sure you sit and you look at the questions. I know I answered a question earlier. Sit and look at the questions that you got wrong and think about why did I get those questions wrong? Simple. Very simple, right? Why did I get that wrong? And then you got to understand the strategy behind how to get that right. Okay, so number one, figure out why I got it wrong. Number two, How do I make it right? And number three, do it again. Practice the question again, making sure that you can do it in speed, efficiently. If you can do that for every question you get wrong, in about 2 to 3 weeks, you'll be jumping at high school. I promise you that. So let's get on to verbal reasoning. Verbal reasoning is historically the worst answered subsection. This is actually the subsection I did the best in. I don't know. I don't know how. Actually, I do know how. I'll tell you a little bit of my strategies. But yeah, this is the hardest one. And the reason it's the hardest is because there's so many questions, about 44 questions. And look at the average time per question. 30 seconds. 30 seconds. The passages are like this big. I don't know how you can read that in 30 seconds. Well, this is the subsection that is mostly about comprehension, speed reading, and being able to identify questions quickly, being able to identify the information quickly. So, how do we get onto that? How do we do that? Right? This is the most challenging one, but it's also the most redeemable one. If you do good in this, then you've already put yourself ahead of the curve. But people, the reason why it's the most challenging one, the reason why people do the worst in it is because they shy away from it. They don't like it. Most people don't like VR. So if you like VR, you're already at an advantage. Now, it says something at the bottom of the screen. And this is something I want you all to note down. This is for your entire UCAT. This is everything. In every subsection, this is important, especially important in verbal reasoning, and that is Alt F. Alt F. Now, in your UCAT exam, you have a keyboard. This keyboard gives you shortcuts. You have shortcuts on this keyboard that you can use instead of clicking on a mouse, right? Which makes things a lot faster. Alt F is one of the main shortcuts you should be using. What Alt F does is it flags the question. Flagging is basically you put a little flag on the question, right? And then it gives you the option when you finish the paper to come back and look at your flagged, basically, questions. If you flag the questions that you don't want to do or you think are too time consuming and come back to them at the end, that will automatically improve your score. So this is your best friend. This is the best technique you can use to get the highest score. Flag the questions that you are spending too much time on. Do not waste your time on questions. Every question is worth the same amount. They're all worth 1 mark. So do the ones that are easier and save the ones that are harder till the end if you have any time, right? That that simple concept is something that people miss out on. So make sure you focus on that. So it's about triaging. It's about knowing, okay, which ones are hard, which ones are easy. And that takes skill. That's what takes practice. The more and more VR questions you do, verbal reasoning questions you do, the more and the more you'll be able to realize which ones are more difficult and which ones are easier. Now, you'll have extracts and passages that are very, very long, and you'll have ones that are very, very short. That doesn't necessarily mean that you should skip the long ones and do the easy ones or the shorter ones, because a lot of the time, the ones with just shorter extracts are usually harder to find the questions in, to find the right answer in. And a lot of the times, the ones that are actually longer have some questions that are quite easy. So it just depends. It depends on who you are, and it depends on how much practice you do. The more and more practice you do, you'll be able to tell which ones are harder, which ones are easier, and you'll get really good at skipping those ones. What I mean by skipping is you take a guess. Just take a guess and move on, right? Don't leave it blank. Take a guess and move on. Cut your losses. You have to, it's a sort of ego that people, I mean, think about it. You've done your GCSEs and your A levels, and you've always been okay. You've always been able to get through most questions, right? In your GCSEs and A levels. In this exam, it's not the case. And Mufti's mentioned that. We need to be able to know when to cut our losses. Okay, I can't do this question. Let's move on. Cut your losses, cut your ego, right? The quicker you do that, the faster your score will go up. So, okay, let's let's have a look. Now, what is the strategy? What is the strategy? How do I tackle each question? I mean, we've talked about it. There's true, false, and can't tell questions, which is basically asks you, oh, is this true? Is this false? Or can you not tell? And there's the single best answer ones, which is a lot of words, right? Those ones are generally harder, right? So the true, false, and can't tell are usually the easier ones. They're usually the ones you should prioritize because they're quite easy to pick out the information from. Scans. You skim the question. Skim. What's skimming? Skimming is the idea of reading a question, reading the passage as fast as you can while still picking out the information that's relevant. That's a skill. That's not something you're able to do straight away. No one can do that straight away. The way you develop that skill is you start from today. Yeah. I don't care if you're doing a UCAT prep in another 2 months. You start this from today. Now, that is any Instagram reel, any comment, any TikTok, any post you read, anything, absolutely. This whole screen, you try and read it as fast as you can while still picking out the important information. Now, you're going to be really bad at this to begin with because you're going to realize you've read the whole thing and then you're going to look back at it and be like, oh, wait, I forgot everything. But then the more and more you do it, you'll get better at this. And the better you get at this, by the time it comes to you doing a UCAT prep, amazing. You'll be so much better at this. And you'll be so much better at picking out the right answer. Choosing your keywords. Now look at the question and find the keywords. There's always going to be some keywords, whatever it is. Like if it's talking about, if it's an extract talking about the Holocaust, extract talking about World War II, whatever it is, those are keywords, and you can find them in the text. Okay, you should be able to pick them out, and find them. Right, find them. Then you anchor your reading. You find those keywords, and you read the sentence before and the sentence after. You anchor it. Those around the keyword is probably going to be where the answer is. Okay, so read those. You anchor it, and then you make sure you don't fall for the traps. The most obvious bait ever is outside knowledge. So obvious. Okay. Incredibly obvious. Because what they do is they expect you to have some sort of outside knowledge about this, right? Is so something easy. Traffic lights can go red, right? Traffic lights can go red. We know that. I know that. I drive. But maybe in the extract it hasn't said that. So you might say, oh wait, traffic light. Yeah, of course there is. True. But it was not in the extract. So the actual answers can't tell. See what I mean? So do not fall for outside knowledge. Second thing is keyword bait, which is the keywords which is in the extract isn't necessarily the same ones in the text. Actually, most of the time it's not. So if it says flowers in the extract, it might say, oh, if it says flowers in the question, it might actually be roses in the extract. So you try not to fall for that. That's the difficult one. And as well, time traps. Don't spend too much time on a question because some questions are made literally harder. They made so much harder. For what? Just so you can waste your time on them. They don't expect you to get it right, by the way. To get a score of 900, you don't need to get every question right. They don't expect you to get it right. Actually, they throw questions in there which don't get marked. They won't tell you which ones. You never know. You'll never know which ones weren't marked. But there's actually questions in your VR or in your UCAT in general that aren't marked. And it's just there to waste your time. So imagine spending 2 minutes on a question and you don't even get the mark for that. But you'll never know. Be scared. Be scared of time. You need to be a little bit scared. Spend as little time as possible on these questions. But as well, you need to make sure you're keeping yourself stable, right? Keep yourself stable. When you're reading a question and you're doing it, right? Don't don't sit there and like, oh, I don't know what's going on, and then you end up wasting time and then you don't get anything out of it. Just be careful, all right? Move on. That's the best tip I can give you for the VR. Learn to move on. Okay, just a few tips. These are some ones that are just like general things that you kind of learn over the years, and the more revision you do, you'll realize that this is the case. If your language is extreme, it's usually false or can't tell. If it's something like, oh, everything, like every insect can fly, it's probably false or can't tell. Okay, it's not always the case, but it probably is. Also, negative questions. Negative questions. No, like double negatives. Like there's a lot of times where they put double negatives in there, which is actually a positive, but it confuses you. So take your time, reread the question. And then as well, try and do your true, false, and can't tell. Spend the time on those because usually those are the ones that are easiest to get right. Get some flag and trust the passage. Remove everything, every single outside knowledge that you have, just remove it out of your head. Just trust what's in the passage, that's it. Because that's where the answer's coming from. Okay, so give us some tips. All right, let's get you guys to have a go. How about that? That's more important, right? Get you guys to have a go. I presume most of you haven't tried a UCAT question before. You may have tried it a little bit. You might have tried it here or there. Let's get you to have a go at this question. Now, I want you to just don't put it in the chat. Don't put it in the chat yet. I'm gonna give you a minute, okay? And then I'm gonna get everyone to put it in the chat. So if everyone can kind of have a read of this, I'm going to give you more time than you would. Remember, normally it's about average 30 seconds, but I'm going to give you about a minute. Okay, a minute to try and see whether you can get this question right, and then we'll talk through it. So just a quick minute. Okay, can everyone put in the chat what they think the answer is? So true, false, or can't tell? What do you think? Everyone put in the chat. Can't tell, can't tell, can't tell, can't tell, false, 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 can't tell, can't tell, can't tell, can't tell, can't. Amazing, 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 amazing. So, can a brave volunteer let us know why they think it's can't tell or why they think it's false? Can someone just give it a go? What do you think? Can someone they don't want to speak? They don't want to let us know why they think it's can't tell before we sort of move on. Anyone? Anyone put their hands up? Be a little bit brave. Go on. Why do you think it's can't tell? Someone want to say? Okay, well, we're typing. That's fine. That's fair enough. Because it says that climate change affects the flowering of plants, not the bee population. Main extreme language. Okay. Let's have a look at what it says on here. All right. What does it say? Passage has several causes of bee decline. So it says in the passage, literally says, pesticide use and habit loss are frequently cited as contributing factors. Recent studies have also pointed to the effects of climate change on flowering patterns. Okay, so that means all of these things are contributing factors, but it doesn't say which one's the main cause. Again, this is a true false can't tell, and you may think this is really easy. This is probably an easy question, yeah? But the reality is, even though this is easy, when you're in the exam and you're in that time pressure, it's not always the easiest. So, well done everyone for getting that right. But this is yeah. So the verbal reason, make sure to take those tips I've taken on board. It's the hardest one. It is the hardest one. It's the hardest one to improve at. But the more and more you do, I promise you, you will improve on it. Focus on that skim reading. That is the best thing you can do. Now let's go on. Let's move on to decision making. Decision making is the second subsection. Decision making is you again your ability to make decisions. Now, what is that? Well, in simple terms, it's puzzles. It's puzzles. Can you do puzzles, basically? And the thing that's really good about decision making is it has topics. It actually has topics. I'll go through a bunch of the topics that are, in decision making in this webinar now, but it has topics in it, which is crazy, right? Which means because it has topics, you can actually learn how to do the questions. If you focus on learning each specific topic and getting good at each one, once it comes to the exam, you'll be good at everything and you'll do amazingly. So again, what's really good about decision making is you have 1 minute approximately. You have about a minute per question, which is more than you would in any other subsection. 1 minute, right? 1 minute's a long time, which means you can take the time to actually think about the answer, to actually structure yourself in your head and think about why certain things are right, why certain things are wrong. Now, this is very difficult. Decision making, some of them are very difficult, some of them are quite easy. So you're able to sort of take the hard ones, spend more time on those, and the easy ones you can buy yourself more time, which you can use on the hard ones, if you understand what I'm trying to say. So this is one that actually, theoretically, you could get 100% in. And people do that. People get 900, they get 100% in it, which is amazing. I didn't, all right? But there's a lot of people that do that. So, this is one that you can definitely learn. Now, this is some question types. There's a few of the question types that are here, and it kind of needs you to formulate your own strategy. This is just like A levels, for example. You just focus on the topics. If you do A level maths, same thing. It's like learning differentiation, for example. You get good at differentiation. Once a differentiation question comes up, you can get that right. So make sure you're okay at each one of these question types. Granted, some of them people hate, some of them people like. Some ones, like argument evaluation, tend to be very easy. Some ones like Venn diagrams, people find quite easy. And probability as well, people find really easy. And some ones like syllogisms can be very difficult. Logical puzzles can be very difficult, and information interpreting it can be very difficult. So it's sometimes it's about the look of the draw, and sometimes it's about strategy. So you need to be able to create that strategy. So let's get started really. First one, syllogisms. Syllogisms, I'll show you an example of it in a second, but it's really weird, right? Syllogisms are quite weird. Syllogisms is where it gives you something like you'll see in the next one, for example, all lizards are reptiles, all reptiles are animals, some animals are not red, whatever. Some things that kind of link to each other, they do link to each other in a pattern, but it's not really obvious when you read it what the pattern is. So you need to be able to create a strategy for yourself and write things down. So you need to identify the statements that are here, right? Identify it. If all A are B, that means that every single A is B. Does that mean that every single B is A? Not necessarily. So you need to think about what's actually true and what is sort of you don't know. The things that you don't know is usually false, right? So this will make a lot more sense when I show you the question. But you should be able to prove every conclusion. So we'll ask you, for example, okay, is this true? Is this false? And it'll give you five statements. And you basically get them all right. You'd say that they're all true or false. Now, make sure when you're putting that one is true and one is false, make sure you're able to prove it. Make sure you're actually able to test the conclusion. If you can test the conclusion, you can get it right. You're right. Well done. But if it's kind of a bit iffy, then maybe you've gone wrong somewhere in your logic. All right. Use your whiteboard. Use Venn diagrams. Use some people use flowcharts, right? Make sure to start as well with the main statements. The ones that are obvious. All A are B. Very obvious. Start with those because those ones are usually the best ones. Again, the main one, this is the thing that gets people. It's a bit confusing. Just think about it. Take your time. Assuming that some are B means some B are A. Just because some A are B doesn't mean some B are A. It'll make more sense. There's an example of this on the next slide. So let's have a go. I think we'll have a go. We'll see how it goes. Um, these are five statements. Okay, I'm just gonna read out the sort of question for you all, and then we'll go through them one by one. Okay, but I'll give you the time to go through all of it, get your answers, and then we'll see if you guys got it right. So, skinks and iguanas are two different types of lizards. All right, all dabursi are skinks, and all lizards are reptiles. Okay, great. It's really useful. Place yes if the conclusion follows. Place no if the conclusion does not follow. And there's a few examples on there. So I'll give you guys about a minute and a half to 2 minutes. So I'll give you a lot longer for this one. And I want you guys to get every single answer. Just write it all down. And then we're going to go through it one by one. All right? So we'll just get started. Okay, let's go for the first one then. So for the first one, what do we think? So no lizards are skinks. What do we think? All right, we've got the whole bunch here. So everyone's saying no for the first one. Okay. No lizards are skinks. So skins and iguanas are two different types of lizards. No lizards are skinks. Well, They're different types of lizards, aren't they? So automatically that's wrong. It's false, right? So that was okay. Has everyone gotten that right? Is everyone okay with that? Okay, good. The second one, all Aldivasi are reptiles. Now it says all Aldivasi are skinks. So if all Aldivasi are skinks and skinks and iguanas are lizards, that means that means what? That means all lizards are reptiles, which means this is what, true or false? What do you think? Is the second one yes or no? I think everyone's put yes that I can see. Has anyone put no? Does anyone think this is no? Okay, good. Yeah, so the reason why this is yes is because if all Divazi are skinks and skinks are lizards and lizards are reptiles, then well, all Divazi are reptiles. Because it says they're both lizards and all lizards are reptiles. So this is automatically yes. Well done. Good, everyone's doing well. So for the third one, no Divazi are iguanas. What do we think? No Divazi are iguanas. Does anyone want to explain why that one's yes? Or why that one's no? Someone put their hands up and explain this one. What do you think? Yeah, if you can't tell, it is no, technically. If no one wants to explain it, I'll kind of go on to the next slide and I'll show you guys the explanations for all these. And then we'll go through a few ones because I think the one that people are getting confused upon is number 4. Okay, good. So there we go. Everyone that's gotten this basically did really well. So I'm gonna go through each one basically. Well, I think we went through the first two, we're on the third one now. So no Divasia iguanas. So what it says is all Divasia skinks, no Divasia iguanas. Now, if all Divasia are skinks, then yes, they can't be iguanas, can they? Because we have skinks and iguanas, and if all Divasia are skinks, well, it's saying skinks and iguanas are two different types of lizards. So you can't be both. You have to be one or the other, which is why it's yes. Now, number 4, some reptiles are skinks. Now, if it's saying all lizards are reptiles, right? All lizards are reptiles. So every single lizard is a reptile, which means that automatically some reptiles are lizards. Now, lizards can either be skinks and iguanas. So because lizards can either be skinks and iguanas, that automatically means that some reptiles can be skinks, which is a yes, because it's ambiguous. Even if it's one or two of them, that's still some, if you understand what I'm trying to say. So that's a yes. Okay? And the last ones as well. All skinks are Divazi. Now it says skinks and iguanas are two types of lizards. All Divazi are skinks. Remember the advice I gave you in the last slide. If all Divazi are skinks, does that mean that all skinks are Divazi? No. This is the key kind of concept that people gonna really get confused upon. They say that because all Divazi are skinks, that automatically means that all skinks are Divazi. But that's not what that means. We don't know. We don't know what even is a Divazi. No, we don't know what that means. They could not be Divazi. They could be something else. So just because all Divazi are skinks doesn't mean all skinks are Divazi. So that's a no. So well done for all of you who got that right. If you didn't get that right, usually that last one will confuse people. But hopefully, if you see that again, you'll be able to sort of understand the differences. So this is again, as you can see, this can be it can be very difficult. It can be very difficult. It's a difficult question, and syllogisms generally people do quite terribly on. And the reason why is because you kind of you need to get most of them right. You can't just get if you get three out of five, you you don't get any points, right? So you need to get at least 4 or 5 to get any marks for it. But yeah, people find it really confusing. Now, the second one is logic puzzles. Now, this is about the process of elimination. We need to be able to think about all the conclusions together. We need to think about all the obvious ones and come to a conclusion. This is some stuff like it's gonna be some weird questions like Annie is taller than Charlie, Ben is shorter than Dan, and then Dan is like 6'1" or whatever it is, and then it tells you like, okay, which one's the shortest, which one's the tallest, that sort of thing. So logic puzzles can be very confusing. Okay. Now the way you do this, the way you do logic puzzles is you start with the most obvious. Again, you start with the most obvious. Logic puzzles are the easiest ones to sort of use a Venn diagram for. It's you need to visualize it in your head. You need to visualize it because there's some weird ones. There's some ones where it's like, okay, you're sat on a table and this person sat next to this person sat next to this person, there's a chair between this person and this person. You can't physically do that in your head. You need to be able to visualize it. So the biggest tip for this is learn how to use the paper, right? Learn how to use the whiteboard. You're given a whiteboard in your UCAT exam. Learn how to use it. Be able to actually look and think about it and visualize it. The easier you're able to visualize it, the easier this will get. Okay. So again, some of these logic puzzles can be very difficult. So don't waste all your time on it. Okay. The ones that are very difficult, leave them till the end. All right. Skip them, guess them, move on. Do them at the end because again, this is one of the subsections you should have excess time. So you'll be able to spend the time on this sort of stuff. Okay. Now, let's have a go, shall we? So three students, Alex, Bella, and Charlie, each store their books in a different locker, number 21, 22, or 23. We know the following. Alex's locker number is higher than Bella's. Charlie's locker is not 21. Bella does not use locker 3. Which locker number does Charlie use? Now, I'm going to give you guys a minute for this again. I want you to have a go. Now, also, just to say, by the way, for all these subsections, we'll be going on a deeper dive in every single one. More tips and more advice. For those of you joining us in our summer intensive, which we'll speak about later on, you'll have more opportunities to do questions like this, more opportunities in mentors as well. We'll speak about that later in the end. And for those sticking around for us as well, we'll be doing more webinars on these specific subsections as well. So I'll give you guys a minute and then we'll go through it. Okay. Okay, this is very interesting. It's very interesting. Because everyone put their answers in the chat. So we've got some 23s, we've got some Ds, we've got some 22s. All right. D, we got 23. Yeah, we do get paper and test to write down stuff. You get a whiteboard. So yeah, you get some Ds, you got some Bs, you got some Cs, you got some whatever. All right. So this is a bit of an interesting one. Now, before I show the answer, okay, I'm just gonna talk through the logic behind this. All right. I'm just gonna give you guys some things that are obvious. So what it says in this question, Bella doesn't use 23, so she is not 23. Okay, and Charlie is not 21. So Charlie's not 21. Basically, 21, 22, or 23 is going to one of them, right? So they're either 21, 22, or 23. Either one of them, basically. Now, Bella isn't 23. Okay, she's not 23, so she's either 22 or 21. Yeah? And Alex is higher than Bella. Well, so if she's either 22 or 21, and Alex is higher than her, right? That means Alex could be 23, right? Or Alex could be 22. It says Charlie's not 21 either. So because Charlie's not 21, then Charlie could either be 22 and Charlie could be 23. So we've got those two. So we've got Alex and Charlie both being 22 or 23. But do we know which is which? Do we know that Charlie is definitely 23? See what the explanation says. All right. Now, this is what it says. Well done for those of you that got D, by the way. This is a very difficult one. A lot of people put 23 for this. And it's really, that's what you think, right? But if you actually deep it, you sit and think, it can't actually, we don't know. We don't have enough to know that one is 23 and one is 22. We just know that they're one or the other. Yeah? We either know that one is 23. We know that Charlie and Alex, they're both either 22 or 23. But we don't know which is which. Just because Alex is higher than Bella, right? Doesn't mean that Alex is 22. No one knows. No one knows what that means. It just means that he's not 21. So because Alex is not 21 and Charlie is not 21, Bella must be 21. We know that for certain. Bella must be 21. Everyone agree with me? Bella must be 21, which means Alex and Charlie need to be 22 or 23. But we don't know which is which. Yeah? There's no other information that tells us which is which, so it's can't tell. Yeah, that's why, if that makes sense. Okay? And it's one that when I've explained it to you now, you're probably thinking, okay, that makes sense. That's easy. But when you're in the exam and you're thinking about it, yeah, because again, yeah, you think it says it's one higher than Bella's. It's not. It just says it's higher than Bella's. It doesn't mean what that is. That could either mean one higher or two higher. It doesn't matter. So don't make assumptions. In your head, it's easy to make assumptions, and it's easy to kind of go through and pick an option. But it kind of goes to show that when you're in sort of stress of the exam and you're in time conditions, I give you a minute to do this, it's easy to fall into these traps. So be careful and take your time. That's all I can give you for this sort of thing. Why is Bella definitely 21? I've explained it, but I'll just explain it again really quickly. So Alex is higher than Bella. So we know that. Alex is higher than Bella, which means Alex is 23 or 22. We don't know. It's one of those two. Charlie is not 21. So if Charlie is not 21 and Alex is higher than Bella, that means Alex can't be 21 either because 21 is the lowest. So Alex and Charlie can't be 21, which means who must be 21? Bella. So Bella's definitely 21. That's what that means. So and then once you know that, it's kind of much easier to make the right ones, make the right option. Okay, so well done for those. Now again, so Venn diagrams. This is the next one. This is sort of maths. This is day-to-day maths. This is something that's quite easy. And if you guys are GCSE maths or even A-level maths, this should be much easier for you guys to do. Again, it's just about getting into the habit again and getting the right things. Doing the right amount of practice and being much easier, finding it much easier as time goes on, you'll find it so much easier to do this. Now, use subtraction. Use subtraction. Make sure you got the center, subtract from the outside. To be honest, if you know how to do that, it'll make this much, much easier. And make sure to check your totals. You'll have time to do that. You'll have a calculator. So you'll be able to check your totals, right? Make sure, because if it's not adding up, you've done something wrong. But anyways, Venn diagram is something we'll go into more detail in later. I don't want to spend too much time on that. But again, this is just very much GCSE maths sort of style thing. It is a bit difficult, can be very confusing, but just take your time on it. Again, the main thing about this is reflection, reflecting from all these questions. Okay, argument evaluation is the next example that we have, and I'm just going to give you guys the example for this. Argument evaluation, it's about evaluating an opinion, making sure it's relevant, making sure it's objective and not subjective, right? And also making sure that it's strong. You need to get rid of irrelevant data, stuff that doesn't matter, that's not the answer. So when you look at these arguments, eliminate and get rid of the arguments that are childish and take the ones that sound like scientific and sound objective, and those are probably the ones that are stronger arguments. So I'll have a go at this one. I'll give you guys about I'll only give you guys about 30, 40 seconds for this, so I won't take too long for this. But have a go at this one and let me know which one most weakens the argument. Okay. So let's put them down. What do you think? I don't see how the options link to the question. Yeah. The weak arguments are the ones that don't link. That's the main thing. But it's the one what doesn't link the most, if that makes sense. Which one's like the worst one? So this is the one that's a bit weird. It's like, well, what's going on? What's the worst one? Which one's the most weak? So what do we think? Let's put our answers in the chat. What do we think it is? What are we thinking? So memory is influenced by emotional and logical factors equally. So we should ban cars from the city centre to reduce air pollution and improve public health. What most weakens it? C? A? Hold on 1 second. Sorry, guys. Give me a second. I think this was a bit weird. I'm not sure if it's because of more emotional recalling memories. Yeah, I don't think this is relevant. I think this one don't ignore that. I just realized the answers are not relevant to the question stem, so apologies for that one. Basically, just remove the question stem. I'll just give you some tips for this sort of question that I got. Yeah, this is not something you will get ever in your exam, so don't worry about that. Okay. The main thing about this, and the main thing about the weakened arguments, as you can see, if you just get rid of the question stem and just look at the answers, just pretend to look at the answers. Now, the thing about weakening the argument, first of all, yeah, as Mufti said in the chat, the longest one is usually the right one. I don't know why it happens. It's always like that. Don't worry about this. But the thing about the weak argument, it's usually the one that is just unrelated. It's usually quite easy, and you can get it in about 2 minutes. So these argument evaluation questions are usually the easiest ones because they're the ones that give you time for the other questions. But this is a very big but in this because there's usually two that are very weak, and it's about figuring out which one's weaker. And it comes down again to this stuff. It comes down to what's relevant, objective, and strong. It needs to be completely irrelevant, completely subjective, and not strong at all. Two of these arguments, two of those answers will probably be very weak, but it's about figuring out which one's weaker, and that's the skill. And that, the more and more you do, the more you realize how much easier this sort of thing is. It's very easy. And the more questions you do, the easier it gets. So again, I'll just say apologies for this, but this is one of those topics that are very easy to do. It'll take you about a couple hours to be honest, and you'll be able to get most of them right. So this is something just focus on. Make sure you can get all of these right, and it saves you more time for the rest of them. Now, probability. Again, this is another one. This is just like Venn diagrams, is very much GCSE and A-level heavy. Okay, so probability, the tips and tricks, and the main thing with this is, I'm just gonna bring back your GCSE, sort of your GCSE brains here for a second. When it says X and, so if it's an event and an event, you multiply. And if it's an event or an event, you add. That's a general rule of thumb. You take that, you screenshot it, whatever, you put it in your brain. It'll make sense in every question you do. If it says X and something, or A and B, you multiply. If it says A or B, you add. This is for any event that comes together, independent versus dependent, independent events versus dependent events. This is basic probability. You multiply when it says and, you add when it says or. That's the single best tip. Genuinely, if you're good at that, you're fine. They're very much these probability questions. I found them the easiest out of all of them because they are GCSE style. And if you're good at GCSE probability, you understand that you'll be fine. If you're not, don't worry. And if you don't do, by the way, if you don't do A-level maths, don't think you're at a disadvantage. You're not. You're not at a disadvantage at all. You have just as much of a skill set as anyone else to be able to do these questions. So don't worry. But yeah, use your whiteboard. Usually a lot of these questions they rely on tree diagrams. So be able to learn how to use tree diagrams. There's no shame in looking back at your GCSE notes, by the way. But generally, the more and more you start doing these questions, and the more and more you get them wrong, you'll be able to think about why you got them wrong, and you'll be able to fix these sort of small things and small misinterpretations you might have had about probability previously. Because a lot of us do have that. We think we know a lot, but we don't actually. There might be a few things that we don't understand and it comes out when we do these questions. So make sure you can fix those by reflecting. That's the main advice I give to you. And that's the main thing that will help you improve in all of these questions. I've said it before, I'll say it again. So make sure you're able to do that and make sure you're able to get really good at reflecting and get really good at knowing why you got something wrong. And as you do that, everything will get so much better. And just to conclude the VR and the DM section, again, we'll go into more and more detail about this in the next coming weeks and over the next couple of months, especially if you're joining us on our course. I will hand over to Mohammed Mufti, who will complete us with the QR section, the SJT, and letting us know a little bit more about the course that we're offering in the summer as well. So thank you guys so much for listening to me in the VR and DM, and I'll hand over to Mufti.
Thank you, Ibrahim, for doing the hard bit. Honestly, I had to leave it to the expert to walk you guys through the two most notoriously difficult subsections. So, guys, we got through the hard bit. It's just the final hurdle now. We're going to get through the nice and easy subsections, the ones that people enjoy. So, what are we going through next? Quantitative reasoning. And we've labeled it as the clinician. Why have we labeled it as the clinician? Because this subsection, even though it's very mathematical, the questions you're going to get realistically will be year 8, year 9 type GCSE early grade 4, grade 5 GCSE maths questions. They're going to be very simple. Speed, distance, time, multiplication, area of a circle, or calculating taxes, multiplication, division, that sort of thing. There's not a lot of complexity to it. A lot of it can be done mentally with mental math strategies. So what makes this so difficult and why are we labeled this the clinician? Essentially, the key over here is this is probably the most time pressured subsection. You've got 40 seconds per question, and the questions come in packs of four. So you get four questions with the same stem. So they'll give you like a stem, they'll give you like a calorie label. So they'll give you a food and they'll tell you the macronutrients within it, and they'll ask you to calculate how many calories are in the food, and they'll give you four separate questions on that topic. And then they'll give you another block of questions. The first question by nature is always going to be take you a bit longer. Reason being is because that's when you're looking at the information and reading everything, and the following questions are just a bit easier because you've already read the prompt. So that's a quick strategy with the QR. Now, the reason we labeled it the clinician is because you're doing something called triaging. What is triaging? Triaging is the key skill we're going to be teaching you guys throughout the next few webinars, and that is identifying what questions are worth your time and what ones are a waste of time. Okay? That's the most important thing. Because the difference between someone who scores 600, 500 even, and someone who gets 850 plus, which is very easy. I've seen so many people just bank towards just getting a really high QR score to save their UCAT, and it works a lot of the time, is the people who identify what questions are worth their time, the 80% of questions which are free, easy marks, and the 20% they leave it if they've got 3, 4 minutes left at the end of the subsection, and they can just guess the remaining ones. Those are the highest scorers, okay? So that's something we need to get you guys in the grips with. It's very unconventional. It's not what you've been taught at by your school teachers, because your teachers tell you to double check the questions, read it again, keep reading it, give yourself 5 minutes, 10, 20 minutes at the end of the exam, and go back, flip through the paper. No, the UCAT is different. And this is the skill we want to embed in you guys. So you might find it difficult at first to build this triaging skill, which is also very useful for VR as well, because VR is also quite time pressured. DM sort of is time pressured as well, not as much as the other two, because you've got like a minute per question. It's just syllogisms mainly, because there's like 5 statements that you need to get through that people find difficult. And SJT, obviously, there's not much time pressure. But anyways, let's get into it. How to tackle these sorts of questions. So we've got an example question over here for quantitative reasoning. Can you guys have a go at this? Guys, have we got an answer yet? I'll give you guys a few more seconds. Do you get a calculator? Very good question. There, you're not allowed to bring your own calculator to the exam. For this subsection, basically there's a digital calculator, so you have to press Alt C and it opens up a calculator, and you have to use like the little calculator keypad. So you know when in your keyboard in the bottom right corner, you've got like a little keypad. Just use those for the numbers. So you need to press plus for addition, the slash for dividing, the star for multiplying, and the minus sign for minusing, and the equal sign obviously for final answer. You need to get very comfortable with that. If you guys get a Medify account, we've got a discount code for Medentors for that as well, 15% off. It's got calculated training skill questions. So have a go at that and do some questions there, okay? Cool. So everyone is saying C, okay? You guys are saying C. Let's go through this question. So the answer is C. Well done, guys. So can you guys see, rather than typing out all the answer, look how distant all the values are from each other. You've got something that's around 3K, you've got something that's 4.5K, 5.5, 5.9, and 6.8. No need to multiply all the numbers together. Just put a small number in. So instead of doing 0.676 times 8165, just do 70% times 80%. And then do a mental calculation of zero point 0.7 times 80 and get yourself 56K. So you know roughly the answer is closest to that 56K, so halfway in the 5,000s. And it saves you minutes of time instead of having to type everything down. Because the UCAT, the time is of the essence. So in your calculator, if you're going to type down 6768165 it's going to take you ages. But if you type just 81,000, 60,000, quick mental maths, or you can even do like 7 times 8, and you know roughly that's what, 56,000. That's going to give you a lot of the marks, okay? So a very key strategy is save yourself time, okay? Lovely. This is an example of a QR question we can get given, okay? Now, the QR subsection, it is just generally a lot of GCSE maths. There's not a lot to it other than that. So we're going to go into it more specifically in our QR specific webinar, which we've got coming up on the 15th, alongside verbal reasoning. So we're going to go into a lot more detail there. The purpose of this webinar is just a brief introduction. So don't worry, we've got lots more coming for QR coming up, okay? Lovely. And now this brings me to our next subsection, the situational judgment test. So for the situational judgment test, whatever's happened in the other three subsections, leave it, let it be. I remember in my actual UCAT exam, I was just sitting there and we had abstract reasoning as our last subsection. Obviously, it's been removed now. I had such a huge sigh of relief. I was like, "Ah, thank God, it's done, it's done." And then SJT started because I know that whatever I do now isn't going to change my score. It's not going to like, I'm not going to screw it up over here because it gives me a banded score and it's completely different. Also, there's no time pressure with SJT. Why? Because they're not going to pressure you with a time-based situation for something that tests your ethics. Because if we put ourselves in a time constraint for an ethical question, we may not give the most logical answer, okay? Obviously, as doctors, there will be time constraints, but right now we're just applicants. So that's what we're trying to get through with. So how does SJT work? This is basically your ethical duty as a healthcare professional. It's basically just making sure you guys aren't going to kill someone on placement, basically. Which, believe it or not, a couple years ago did happen. In my med school, someone did accidentally kill a patient. But anyways, that's the story for another day, right? So how does SJT work? You've got 69 questions, and you've got over a minute per question, which is basically 26 minutes to answer the question stems. It's over a minute per question because it's per question stem. So I know it says 26 minutes. There's not 26 questions. There's multiple question stems per question, so you can just filter through the answers. So that's how it works. And there's 1 mark for a correct answer and half a mark for a close choice. So your options will be very appropriate, um, appropriate, not very appropriate, and not appropriate at all. So if you pick something on the just below or just above, you can still get half a mark, okay? You can still get half a mark if you get just above and below. Why? Because ethics is subjective. Okay, guys? So as someone who got band one, I literally farmed those half marks. I would always make sure that I would never get um away from the question because I was always trying to identify what side of the question is it on. Is it something that's generally acceptable or generally not? That's the key strategy we go off with, okay? Now there's two types of questions. You'll be given an appropriateness question. They'll ask you how appropriate is the situation, and they'll ask you how important the situation is. Okay? So that is how it works. Now, here is an example of an importance question. So, in an important, sorry, non-example, here is how to answer an importance type question. So you'll be in a scenario and they'll give you 4 questions with it about that specific scenario. So they'll, I don't know, a medical student accidentally dropped their patient notes on the bus home. What should they do? And they'll say, I don't know, leave it there. That would obviously be very inappropriate. Report it to a staff, extremely, very, highly appropriate. Sorry, leave it there, extremely inappropriate. pick it up, report the staff, and get it as soon as possible. Very appropriate. Or ask someone else to do it for them. Not the most appropriate. That's probably C out of D, out of the four options A, B, C, D. Okay, lovely. So how do you differentiate between if something is very appropriate or appropriate but not very appropriate? How do you distinguish between A or B? That's where a lot of people miss out. The half mark or the full mark. How do you differentiate between that? Because you're going to get a half mark if you identify if something is appropriate. But if you want to get the full mark, you have to work out is it exactly appropriate or is it very appropriate, okay, for an action to be done. And the way I go about saying this is by linking it to one of the pillars of SJT. Now, the pillars of SJT, what they are, we go into a lot of detail about it in our UCAT guide, which is available for free. It will be sent out as soon as possible on the group chat. But essentially, it's a few pillars such as patient safety, confidentiality, inclusivity, and a few others. Okay, try to identify how acute or how severe is the situation. For example, if a patient has just got a needle stab, are you going to a needle stab and there's a risk of HIV infection? Is it more appropriate that you finish off your notes for the last patient, or is it more appropriate that you report a senior to a senior immediately? Obviously, the most appropriate option would be would be to report to a senior. That would be very appropriate, not just appropriate. Why? Because it's a severe acute situation, right? Whereas on the other hand, if something isn't as severe, so let's say you've got a poster presentation and I don't know, and halfway through the presentation, I don't know, you feel sick, right? Is it and you feel like you're gonna throw up? Is it appropriate to inform a member of staff, or is it appropriate to just go to the toilet immediately and look after yourself? Again, to report it to a member of staff, it would be appropriate, but not very appropriate. Why? Because you're going to be sick. A bigger priority is to look after your own health than to let everyone know that you're unwell. That's just an example. So that's how we go through it. Now, I'll put an example over here just to sort of understand this a bit better. So we've got an important question over here for us to have a go at. So have a skim through this. By the way, guys, just a little side note. We often look at these scenarios in SJT like, oh, these are like really exaggerated. It doesn't really happen often. But believe it or not, I've had situations just like this one, and I've seen it around in medical school a lot. So I know it may seem unrealistic that oh, someone's nervous or oh, patient notes can get lost, but this happens a lot. You'd be really be surprised. I've genuinely seen like SJT scenarios all throughout med school. So yeah. So we've got A, we've got B, we've got B, C. Okay, a lot of B's and C's. Mainly B though. We're seeing people say it's important. Okay, so that would be B. Okay, any more? Right, let's get to it. The correct answer is C. Why is it C? In this scenario, what is our number one priority? The number one priority is Dominic's health. Safety. Safety is always key. Mental health, safety, all of these things are what we consider to be key. Now, whenever we look at health and safety, it's not just physical health, it's also mental health. So if someone has an anxiety attack, someone is unwell acutely, or someone just feels anxious about or nervous about something and is having a panic attack, that is dealt with as severely as, I don't know, a heart attack or something. Okay, maybe not heart attack, but you get what I mean. Okay, it's dealt with very seriously. We take these matters seriously. So if the priority is someone's health, is it really important who's doing what slides of the presentation and who's presenting the research, who's presenting the method and the studies? No, it's not important. It's gonna either be C or D. So straight away, using the method which I discussed earlier, we can cut the line. Is it important generally? So is it A or B? Or is it generally not important, i.e. C or D? We've cut the line, and by using that principle, we've sort of got to C or D. Now, can I get someone who said C to unmute and tell me why they thought that? So, Ehan, you were actually correct. Could you unmute for me and tell me why you thought it was C and not D?
Because like even though they agreed to do it, Dominic is feeling like anxious, and it wasn't like it's not like an important thing that they both agreed to do it.
Yeah, definitely. So it's not important. But why is it not important at all? Why is it not? Why don't I say D? Why is it still somewhat minorly important? Abdullah, if you want to answer. Okay. Essentially, it's still somewhat important because guess what? Sapphire still has to present the slides, doesn't she? So she probably needs to go over his notes. She may not have prepared for it. She may not like understand the situation because more likely than not, she still has to prepare for the slide, doesn't she? Therefore, as a result, it's still somewhat important. Is it very important? Not really. We're looking at Dominic's health, but to some extent, we need to consider that she has to present the slides regardless. If it was something like, oh, the graphics hasn't been done properly for this slide, okay, it's not the most important thing because looking pretty isn't as important as the actual presentation. Okay, so things like that, right? Yeah, lovely. Okay, so that is the answer over here. And again, you guys can look through the slides and in the recording and go through that. Okay, the next one is appropriateness. It's very similar, so we'll just get straight ahead to the question type. I'll give you guys just a minute to go through the scenario. So again, you can get with appropriateness type questions A, B, C, or D, very appropriate, appropriate, somewhat appropriate, and not appropriate at all. Or you can get ranking appropriateness from most appropriate, middle, and the least appropriate. So give me your order of ABC. What is the most important to the least important? I'm getting a lot of ABCs. I'm getting some ACBs, a BAC. Okay, ABC seems to be the most common. By the way, the last one, so if you're ranking it ABC, you're basically saying C is the least appropriate. So rank it from most to least appropriate. Okay. Can someone who said ABC unmute and tell me why?
Because discussing openly, it doesn't have any like harm to the person, to Leonel. Uh, and also asking them how long they've been addicted doesn't have any harm either, but it's less impactful than discussing it because it if it could have less of an impact on him. And suggesting that he's not a good doctor, it doesn't seem like a very good idea.
Yeah, lovely, brilliant. That was really a model answer there. So essentially, we can immediately rule out C. Why? Because not only is it not helpful, it's also hurtful. B is just not helpful. We don't care really how long he's been addicted to painkillers. That doesn't really help the situation. That's not really important, is it? It's not helpful. But C is not only is it not helpful, but it's also hurtful. So it's like a double whammy, and that's why it makes C is the worst option, and we can take that. B, on the other hand, it's not helpful, but it's not the best either. Having an open discussion with your friend about why he's addicted to painkillers, maybe he needs someone to open up to about the situation and perhaps have a shoulder to essentially lean on in a difficult situation. And that might help him to, reach support from the medical school, etc. And that might be a step in the right direction. So A is somewhat productive, it's somewhat progressive towards a better outcome. It may not be like the best thing to do because it might be so severe that authorities have to be informed, etc. But it's somewhat productive. B, it doesn't really get us anywhere, and C, not only does it not get us anywhere, it just makes it worse. So yeah. Okay, guys? Lovely. There's lots of these question types out there on the UCAT consulting website, etc. So do look over those. Okay? And this is our reasoning. Okay, guys, so I've been talking about this a lot, but what we have done is compiled a UCAT guide going over all the subsections and detailing how to tackle every single question type, how to approach every single subsection, what are the key strategies, a complete guideline of how to start from week 0 to week 8 roughly and smash that UCAT. Now, last year, thousands of students downloaded this guide, right? Thousands. We had thousands of downloads for this. And as a result, so many of them, like my messages were just flooded with people saying, "Thank you so much. This guide alone got me, 2100 plus, 2200, and got me into Imperial, Oxford, Cambridge, all of these medical schools that, they were applying for interviews with." It's out there. And the most important thing about this all is that it's free. Okay? We've made this available for free because I remember back when I was applying for medical school, there was so many like guides and resources that were being charged like 25, 30 pounds. It's it didn't feel right to me. So we made a freely available UCAT guide for you guys to access. Now this is going to be put on the WhatsApp community. It's dropped today, so today's the official launch date. It's revised, so it's specific for this academic cycle. So you may see the old one flowing around. This one's newer, better, and cleaner than the other one, and it's also goes into a lot of detail. So everything from this webinar and more. Okay, that's what we have. Also, guys, make sure you're sticking around. We've got a Q&A starting soon, so don't leave just yet. And the next thing is a lot of you guys may be struggling with your academics. So we've opened up something called Medentors Academy, which is a tutoring platform to help you guys with your A levels. So if you guys have been struggling with your predicted grades over the past couple of weeks and you want to get them pushed up because there's going to be resets available for you guys in the start of year 13, then do book a consultation with one of our mentors. We can help you guys push towards a higher A level grade to get those predicted grades up by October time. Okay, guys? So that is a great opportunity for you too. And what is up and coming next? So we've got VR and QR specific subsections where we're going to go into more detail on the 15th. On the 22nd, we're going to go into DM in a bit more detail. And SJT on the 29th, we're going to delve into. Okay. And we've also got a personal statement webinar sometime around September. And for your work experience, for those of you guys who didn't manage to get work experience or anything like that, and you want something to talk about in your personal statement, we've got something called the Medental Society. And the fifth edition will be coming out soon as a webinar, and it will basically just be an insight of a doctor or a dentist or a healthcare professional into their career. Okay, very important. And yeah, so join our WhatsApp community, guys, if you want to keep in touch with us. But before I move on to that, I want to talk you guys through something that we've opened up as of now is the Medentors Summer Intensive. So what is the Medentors Summer Intensive? It is our flagship UCAT course, which lasts 2 months, so starting around July time at the very start, up to August, to prepare you guys and guarantee you guys get that 2100, 2200 UCAT score. Ever since we launched this over the past couple of years, it has sold out basically immediately, which is why we're launching it on this webinar just to give you guys early access. And on top of that, we have helped hundreds of students get into top universities through this course alone, okay, guys? And because of that, we've been able to partner with so many schools, different organizations, and work with them. So this is our Medental Summer Intensive. I would highly recommend you guys to all sign up for this. And if you guys are worried about pricing, etc., we do have widening participation discounts. And if you do bring a friend as well, you also get a discount for that. I would highly recommend you guys to sign up now because we've got our early bird offer. Last year, this literally sold out in 2 weeks. So we had to open up another batch. So you guys have early access at the minute. So yeah, what this comes along with is not just UCAT training, but we're preparing you guys for what comes beyond that. We're even doing a bit of interview preparation as early as the summer of year 12. Why? Because interview preparation is something that builds confidence. And if you have confidence early, when you actually do sit interviews in December and the winter of year 13, you're going to come in with that advantage. We also do one-to-one specifically for the UCAT, and your mentor, you can be rest assured, is a top 1% scorer with a 2300, 2400 score when they took the UCAT and has helped hundreds of students themselves get into medicine and dentistry. And on top of that, we've got specific support for your own applications, whether it's personal statement, one-to-ones, reviews, revisions. We've also got group teaching where you're put in groups with people who are looking to apply to similar universities as yourself. So definitely have a go at that. Okay? So this is what we would recommend. And again, people who take this course on average score well above 2000 plus, 2100, etc. And again, I would definitely say, and obviously this is going to sound biased, but there's a lot of scams out there. Like people are charging like 5,000 for a UCAT course. I'm seeing, and Ibrahim, he's not here, but he would have told you that there's companies that he paid himself for like 2,000 for a summer course. He did not find it useful at all. We don't want this to just be a big commercial scam like that's out there, etc. We want this to be freely accessible. We've got discounts available, and we do a lot of work with schools, etc. as well. So we do offer discounts if your school is partnered with us. So do check this out. You can get more discounts if you bring a friend as well. And this is truly taught by the best of the best. Like we don't just pick anyone to be mentors. They've worked with us for years, okay? So we highly recommend you guys have a look at this and get involved. And yeah, as for how much it costs, it's for the basic course, it's 145, and for the premium one, which basically is a guaranteed money back if you don't get any offers, sorry, if you don't get any interviews, is 249. That consists of more one-to-ones, a full personal statement walkthrough, as well as UCAT specific question walkthrough question banks and video banks for you guys to go through yourself alongside your additional prep. And we basically build you guys a revision schedule for you on how to do that with a mentor. Okay, so we sit down with you and go through it yourself. And there's discounts available for both of them for WP and if you have any other bursaries, etc. Okay, guys, lovely. So I hope you guys found all of that useful. Now I've opened up the Q&A panel. I'm sure you guys are buzzing with questions. So ask any questions now is the best time. Okay. Would it be useful to get Medify and Medentry on top of that? Medify and Medentry are must-haves, okay? They're must-haves. So, if you're gonna spend money on anything, it's that Medify and Medentry. Why? Because they're question banks. There's no freely available question banks out there. There's only those two. So you have to have one of the two. I would highly recommend to pick either one. They're both equally as good. I know students who've used Medify, Medentry. Either way, you're going to get a good score on average. Okay, so pick Medify or Medentry. Please use Medentors discount code. We've got one for Medentry. Medify are being a bit difficult, and they're like not giving us a code this time. I don't know why. So pick Medentry, I guess. But I think it's Medentors 15% off. Press that, and you should get a discount. And yeah, okay. Let's see what else is there. I've heard burning out for UCAT isn't real and you should start as early as possible. Very good question. This is a bit controversial. Some people say burning out for UCAT, they didn't personally burn out. Reason being is because maybe they studied for longer, but they did less hours per day. However, some people study in a shorter period of time and do more hours per day. So they might do 10 weeks of prep and just do a couple hours a day, taking breaks in the middle. Burnout isn't dependent really on how many hours you do. It's more dependent on things outside of work that you do. For example, me personally, I did quite a lot of hours, but I managed my burnout really well. Like I was doing 5, 6 hour days, which is not what I'd recommend, but I did it anyways. But I was really good at managing it because I had my whole summer was very relaxed. Like my family had gone back home to Pakistan, and I was basically home alone with my mum, basically. And I had time to train MMA, play football with friends, go to different cities, and visit family as well. And I had so much free time as a result. So I had a really good summer whilst also studying for the UCAT, and I was just like happy. So make yourself happy. That's a good way to not burn out. But as for hours studied, try to be consistent. Don't do 5 hours one day and nothing the next. Set yourself a specific routine. Burnout is real. I would not recommend to start just as soon as possible because you will, even if you don't burn out, you will still get the fatigue. There is something called UCAT fatigue, which is where you do plateau eventually and you just won't see your score increase any longer. I don't know if it's motivation, inspiration, but we've just seen it happen and I would recommend you guys avoid that. So 6 to 8 weeks, please, if you can. For access arrangements, example, getting 25% extra time. Can you do that? Yes, the UCAT is something called UCAT Sen. They give you extra time for the UCAT if you are available for that. Please, please, please get that if you're available. Because the UCAT is time pressured as it is. Extra time would make a world of the difference for that. Which of the two is better for Medify Medentry? I don't know, but if you want like a cheaper option, just pick Medify because they've given us a discount code of Medentors 15. But they're equally as good. None's better. Medify has a bigger question bank in general. Medentry has an app, so when you're in the car on a long haul journey, you can just flick through some questions, or if you're on the bus to school, flick through some questions. So whichever one I guess is better for you, whichever option you prefer. I have mocks in 3 weeks. I don't know what to do in terms of UCAT. Don't worry, book a UCAT later date. In 3 weeks is plenty of time. So finish your UCAS exams for university predicted grades, really get a good grade over there, and then take a week off or so to, unstress, and then book your UCAT a bit later. That's fine. As long as you don't book it, I wouldn't recommend to book UCAT in September, please, because that's just before school starts or during school. And trust me, you do not want to be doing like especially if you guys are like doing hard A levels like biochem or like maths. Me personally, I found maths difficult, and you everything stack on top of each other. I managed to get my UCAT done and dusted in August, so I had September to relax, And I came back and, in my predicted grades exams, I managed to get 3 A stars just because I gave myself that break. Okay? The Medentry discount code is Medentors15, all caps. Does your GCSE affect your score in the strategic application guide? Yes. If you have grades like sixes and sevens, is that a problem? If you get a good UCAT, it compensates for poor GCSEs. A poor UCAT, a good GCSEs often can't compensate for a poor UCAT though. So, UCAT is far more important. So if you got poor GCSEs, it's not the end of the world. I'm watching this in year 10 because my dad wants to understand this. Any advice for me? If you're year 10, just, first, identify if it's right for you. Get some work experience. Speak to doctors. Speak to dentists. Identify if this is truly the right career for you, and go down that route. We've got loads of webinars that are specific for younger years and getting into medicine dentistry, what it's about. I would highly, highly recommend that you guys watch the Medentors Society YouTube videos. Especially my one about life as a medical student, how I find it, and what I think about the career and who should go into it and who shouldn't. Just to get insight of that. Is a summer intensive course a one-time payment or monthly? We are available to make it flexible for you guys. Just message our WhatsApp account. So message the Medentals account on WhatsApp, okay? Any more questions, guys? Or do we just want to see Arsenal lose to PSG? Okay. Okay, okay. Yeah, okay. I can't lie, I just heard my brother scream downstairs, so I think they've equalized. But yeah. Okay, guys. Anyways, I'll let you guys get on with it. So, please check out the WhatsApp community if you're not already in it. Ask questions, get involved. We're all here for you guys. We want you guys to smash the UCAT. So ask questions. We've got members available. Check out our UCAT guide. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next webinar. Okay, guys? Goodbye.